Hi, welcome to Positively Sparking, a podcast on internet marketing, online productivity and business. Today I'm chatting with Nicky Kriel, social media speaker, trainer, consultant and author. Nicky is one of the very few social media people that has achieved the top 10 Clout social influencer rating. So if you want to learn how to make social media truly work for you, this is the podcast for you. Hi Nicky, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Phil, how are you doing?
Doing very well. What's it like in your part of the world today?
Well, it's nice and hot. I'm hoping you've got nice, it's summer, really it is summer here, which is unusual. So it's just a lovely, beautiful summer's day.
Oh, it sounds perfect. So Nicky, for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
I'm a social media consultant, coach, trainer, whichever label you want to add to me. But basically what I do is I help businesses to use social media in a more strategic way so they get better results.
Great stuff. And one thing that I noticed when we came into contact is you're not just any social media consultant, you're an award-winning one. So tell us a little bit about your awards and becoming a top 10 Clout influencer.
Yeah. Well, in fact, the award I won, I've only entered one award, so it was for a digital awards, and I won for the use of social media for business, which I thought was very appropriate and quite nice to get to be acknowledged that I'm actually using social media correctly for my own business, as well as helping other people to use social media. So I just thought it's quite nice to be award winning, and I've now officially won an award. So I'm mentioning it. The top 10 Clout scorer. I don't know if everybody is familiar with Clout. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Phil.
Well, tell us about it. I'm a little bit, but you define it for us.
Okay. Clout is basically a measure of, I suppose, how social media, how influential you are on social media. So it looks at things like, I suppose, number of followers, the type of engagement, so how interactive you are, how many sites you're using, and how people are responding to you. So they use an algorithm. There are ways to game it, but I haven't. It's a case of what if it's done properly, it just shows that you are using social media in the right way, and that you're getting response and people are interacting with you. And it can help you to improve. But I've been lucky in terms of, because obviously with social media and a measure of how you use social media, I've got a very high Clout score. So it means that I come on people's radar, and I've been put on all sorts of lists, including the top 10 Clout. I think it was for marketing, social media influencers on Clout or something. I find my way on quite a lot of lists, which is quite fun. So you can add it to your credibility. The thing is, if you don't blow your own trumpet, nobody else does that for you. So it's good to have a few acknowledgements that are from other people, rather than what you say about yourself.
Absolutely right, Nicky. And more than anything, it shows that of all the social media professionals out there, you're doing something right. So your method, we all tend to have our own style of whatever it is that we do, but your method delivers results. The wins that you got 100% success rate on awards, entered one, won one. And to get into that top 10 Clout listing, that is all of the people doing social media across the world, isn't it? So that is powerful.
Yeah. So it's just nice. It's nice being on lists. I think it's good for the ego. There's certain things that are good for the ego, and that's one of them, especially if it's something that you actually want to be acknowledged for.
Totally. Yeah, we wouldn't want to be on a top 10 list for some other things, perhaps, but
yeah.
Great stuff. And so you use this line in everything that you do, converting conversations to customers, and I'm guessing that's a key part of what you do. So tell us what that means and how it works.
Okay. Well, basically, I believe very much in building relationships with people. So that's where I'm coming from. So even though I focus on social media, and as a lot of people think of it as technology, I see it as a means to build relationships with people. And it's not just building relationships with people or having conversations and chit-chatting. It's about how to get business by those conversations that you have and those relationships you have with people.
Now that is a big sentence, because a lot of social media, and especially here, Twitter perhaps, and the LinkedIn feed to some extent too, can feel like it's a lot of noise. So going from that noise to actual real conversations with people is a really difficult thing to do, in large extent because a lot of people automate their social media profile. So that's a great thing to focus on. But can you sum that up in a couple of sentences? How do you reach real people through that noise?
I think it's always a case of actually starting with the end in sight, in terms of who your ideal customers are, who the type of people that you would like to reach. That's always quite a good basis to start, because otherwise you can get overwhelmed with everybody that you might be connected with. It allows you also then to channel and focus in on those people, but it's about listening, and I don't think there's enough listening done on social media. Most people broadcast, and so they're all mouth but no ears, and listening is a key thing. And through listening and having a conversation, so actually making it two ways rather than you shouting about your message and basically doing a buy me, or buy my product. It's about actually forming relationships with ideal people so that you can filter the conversation and pay more attention to people who are more important to you.
That is a great word, listening, because so much of what we might find online, perhaps, that tells us how to go and do our social media is about retweeting or liking.
Or automating.
And it's all, as you say, it's all shouting. It's all sort of saying, hey, look at me for a brief millisecond. So that word listening is an important part of life, isn't it? It's not just social media, it's a big word in life in general. So how did you manage to come about it a different way?
Well, I don't think my approach is completely unique, but there are people who influence you, and I think one of my influential books, when as a teenager, I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Great book.
And even though it's such an old book, and there are certain things that are quite dated, it's quite sweet, because you could tell there's a historical context to the original book, but everything he has to say is still apt in this day and age, and even more relevant. And one of the key things, I think, in one of the things that he says is about, if you're a good listener, people think you're a great conversationalist.
Yes.
And often it's by paying attention to other people and people being able to talk to you and feel heard, that it makes a big difference in the relationship. So listening is not just monitoring for mentions of your name. It's actually listening to some conversations, but paying attention if somebody talks to you, maybe go and have a look at what else they're talking about, so that you can actually join a conversation.
Great stuff. And so I'm guessing that my next question to you is going to be, what do you feel most businesses go wrong on social media? Where do they kind of go astray?
Okay.
And you're going to say they don't listen.
I think, I think the most obvious one is that they think social media is a free advertising tool.
Yes.
So they think it's there, and to use it in the same way that you used to do with advertising, in terms of you put a message which is selling something, and if you broadcast it enough to a large enough audience, somebody will buy. And I think that's a big mistake that people make. It's not that you can't sell, and anybody says you can't sell, it's rubbish. You can sell on social media, but you need to build that relationship. The Gary Vaynerchuk talks about jab, 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 right hook, in terms of jab, jab, jabs are the soft touches, where you're giving before you do the ask for something. And if you're part of a community and you give people a lot of good advice, they will buy from you, because otherwise people wouldn't be on social media. Businesses, there'd be no point in being on social media, would there? But I think that's the main area that people go wrong in, is that they're not too much talking and not enough listening. There are a whole load of other things that people do wrong, but I think that's enough for one.
For one thing.
One thing to remember, is actually paying attention to what other people are saying, and that is a two-way conversation.
You made a mention there to giving great information to people. And one of the kind of resistant points for lots of businesses is how much they want to share about what they do, especially for a knowledge-based business person like yourself or like me. So what do you advocate yourself? Do you advocate sharing everything? Do you advocate sharing a little bit? Where do you kind of define that line on being helpful?
Okay. If you talking about Twitter, you're talking about 140 characters.
Sure.
If you can give away your whole trade's history and everything you got in 140 characters, you shouldn't be in business. Okay. A single post is not going to give away everything you can do. Obviously, if you write blog posts, the nice thing about giving your best information is that by giving your best information, people assume you've got even better information that you haven't given them. And by providing really good information, it actually increases your knowledge, because if you research something properly and you look at it thoroughly and you try and give the best approach, you'll end up knowing far more than you put down on a page or in a video. So I don't think you can ever give away all your trade secrets. And I certainly dislike I've got 5 top tips. Here's the one rubbish one that I'm going to give away for free, and you have to pay or give your email to get the other 4. I don't like that approach. I believe very much in I suppose giving and abundance, and that there's a lot of knowledge. There's plenty of information. If people want to research things, they probably can find the answers to almost everything. But if you can put things in a way that people can understand, they will assume that you can help them with their business.
I would totally agree with you. There's nothing that pretty much any of us can know now that can't be found somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm like you, I share everything. And if people ask the question, they'll get an answer. And it doesn't seem to stop, business growing.
Exactly.
In fact, it has the opposite effect. So you've been on Twitter a long time, since 2009.
Yeah.
People often say that it's harder to grow on Twitter or any of the other social media channels now. Would you agree with that or not?
It's, I suppose, the heyday of if you got in relatively early, and I certainly wasn't the first person on Twitter. I was, I tend to be a bit of a laggard, so I don't tend to jump onto things straight away. But I was there from early on, and it was quite fun in those days, and a lot more conversations. As before, a lot of people said, as the marketers, when the marketers get on board, it spoils things. So it's different. It's like with Facebook. If you had a Facebook business page, a few years ago, you could get a lot of traction with it, whereas now you're fighting against Facebook's algorithm, and you'll probably have to spend money, either your time, which is money, or actual money to boost it and to create adverts, etc., to get the same results that you could have a few years ago. But that's the way the situation is. So it's sort of, we're now talking to massive audiences. The number of people on any social media platform, there's enough business out there. There are enough people on there for anybody to be able to have a profitable business or sustainable business. So the opportunities are there. It has changed, but then that's the way things go. It's like you have to deal with things as they are now. So it's not sort of like an easy ride the way it was, but things have adjusted, and things have also improved and become easier because they've made things a lot simpler. So for like Twitter, you used to have to use a application to post a picture onto Twitter. Whereas now from Twitter, you can actually do a Twitter live. You can take a picture from your phone and it's posted directly onto Twitter. It's a lot easier. There are things that have become substantially easier on Facebook Live. If you've got an audience, it's incredible what technology, how it's improved. It's just got a little bit more noisy and quite a lot more people on board. But it's certainly not impossible to get the same results.
Absolutely agree. I think there's always, when things change and they adapt in a new way, there's always new opportunity. And the only hard thing is finding that new opportunity, because perhaps it's not as defined and laid out for people in lots of places for them to follow that particular technique. So there's always things we can do, and talking to someone like yourself, I'm sure that helps people find that way to do things. Yeah. So tell us a bit about how Twitter has changed your own career. What was your career like pre-2009? And what has happened from Twitter since then?
Well, it's had a dramatic effect, because I started on Twitter because I was an NLP coach, so a master NLP practitioner, and I needed to get more customers. And everybody said, you have to be on Twitter. And I sort of did it very reluctantly. I started on Twitter, and a few days later ran away. And it was only a few months later that I thought, okay, I've got to come to grips with it. And I spent time and attention. And I started getting inquiries. I think it was 2 weeks after I sort of started in earnest using Twitter properly. And it's changed. It has changed my business and my life in a dramatic way, just because of the relationships of the people that I've met, the connections I've made, the opportunities that have happened. I think within the first month or so, I was invited to be on a Canadian podcast, which was like, whoa, so I'm working from my kitchen table. And somebody in Canada wants to talk to me about my business. I started as a life coach, and then I decided, because people kept on asking me how I was getting the results I was getting. And I suppose some of it is because all my dots started joining together. So if that makes sense I did journalism at university, and thought I'd never use it. I did marketing, but classic, work for Lever Brothers. So, but I'd sort of almost cast that aside. I've done various bits and pieces along the way. And it's suddenly all the things started coming together, I think, with social media. And people kept on asking me how I was doing it. And I've tried to find somebody who could teach people how to use social media for business. And at that stage, there weren't that many people who were doing social media training, other than this is, where you put the post on, this is like how to set up an account. This is how to create lists, or, sort of to do a post. And I don't think that helps businesses. I think you need to approach it in a strategic way. And so I ran my first training course in August 2010. So, and within a few months, I started with a Twitter course, and then people asked me to do a Facebook course and a LinkedIn course, and I went from there. And then, I was getting people doing a lot of one-to-ones, in person with people at that stage. And after a while, I realized that all my business was coming from social media, because sort of calling myself a life coach wasn't quite real. Although obviously I use my NLP skills when I do training and working with people, because you do sort of fight. But I sort of thought, okay, I'm actually a social media person now.
What a change.
Yeah, so that's changed. I mean, I'm about to make another big change, because as we speak, my house is, most of my possessions are, not quite in packing boxes, because I'm not that organized. But as from just over a week from now, I'm going to become a digital nomad. So
wow.
I'm traveling around, and, sort of doing things online, which
Wonderful.
would never have happened if I'd never gone, onto Twitter those years ago.
That's an amazing thing, Nicky. becoming a digital nomad. So you're going to go to a specific country right away, or are you just going to travel?
Well, I'm basically the way I want to do it is, I suppose, travel slowly. So I've got no set plans other than I'm going to somebody's house for the first few weeks, and then I'm going to France for about 5-6 weeks. And then depending on when my son goes to university or if he's going to take a gap year, what happens after that point. I know I'm doing training in Malaysia in October, and I want to get to South Africa in probably about December time. But other than that, I don't have any set plans. So I'm taking a year out. It's my big 5-0 this year. So you have to do either you have a big party or you have to make a big life change. So I thought it's time to get rid of a lot of my worldly possessions and streamline and just work out what's important and what's not important. So yeah.
Nicky, I love this. I think this is what the digital world is all about. Is opening up these life opportunities, and you're going to take one now and go and travel the world and make a big life change. And that is such a great thing.
The lovely thing is that I have met so many lovely people who I met first on Twitter or Facebook, and only met them after years of online conversations, or then you start having a Skype conversation or a telephone call to build those relationships. But the first time, a few years ago, I went to Scotland, and it wasn't the first time I've been to Scotland, but it was the first time I went with my children, and all of us went to stay with somebody and her family. And it was the first time I met her was when we were coming to spend the night with her, and that's because the relationship had built on up through online.
This is a great story. This is.
I've got so many of these stories of relationships that have formed through online, and that's why I believe very strongly in building relationships.
And what a great testament to that belief and that kind of way of approaching social media. This to me, the most beautiful thing that the internet has done is bring people together that never would have met before the internet.
It creates greater chances of synchronicity.
It does. It's a great way of putting it. We might make that a key headline in the podcast description. Great stuff. So, Nicky, this is changing my questions that I'm going to ask you from here. But hey, you've just revealed something very, very interesting for us all. So, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are digital nomads.
Yeah.
And, they're using the web to earn themselves a career which gives them this great life freedom. So, with that in mind, what advice would you give to someone setting out in their own new business in 2017? Would being a digital nomad be part of that?
I think until I've had some experience of what it's going to be like on the road, and sort of like, I suppose the way I'm going to travel is like, as I said, slowly. It's like be in one place for a certain amount of time, so that I can actually sort of get myself settled down into work mode. I'm not sure that digital nomadism is for everyone. And I'm sure there are lots of people who do it big and love it, and people do it in a different way. Because I'm slightly older, I'm probably not I'm not going to be hanging around with other digital nomads in the same degree that I would need to if I'm in my 20s or my 30s. But we will see what happens. I know there's a whole community of digital nomads. Now, I mean, the lovely thing about social media is that you can do so much research. And obviously, I've done a lot of research in terms of what's possible, how people are making money and things like that. But I think setting up a business, well, obviously, if that's going to be a source of income, you need to, find something that you can do that's flexible and that works around you, and that you enjoy doing. Because there are a lot of ways of making money that doesn't fit with my core. So I know for me, helping people is quite a big thing, in terms of being able to aid people. But I would say the sooner you start your social media presence, if you haven't already, But I'd be surprised if anybody's a digital nomad with no social media presence. I don't think. I'd be very surprised that you would do that. I think most people would be communicating and connecting with friends and family and colleagues, and forming connections. So I think for digital nomads, they already instinctively know how to use social media to build relationships.
Absolutely.
I know it's very long-winded.
No, you made some great points there. Do what's right for you is a key factor in creating a business in 2017. Because it's different. Things have changed. The world is a different place. We have a digital world, and we have an often crazy real world. So building a business that gives you two things, it gives you income and lifestyle, is pretty much the new definition of value in many ways and return. So let's say a business does take all your great advice and they start out on their social media and listening, not shouting. How do they get to over 23,000 followers like you have?
Okay. I think the number of followers you have has no effect on your business. Okay. Chasing numbers is for ego and no other reason. Having 23,000 or so, followers doesn't mean you've got 23,000 customers. So there's no direct link with the number of followers and the number of customers. So, in terms of how many, people have liked your page or followers or subscribers, whichever channel you are, it's irrelevant if those people aren't going to buy from you ever, or aren't people who can put you in touch with other people, or can help your business. If you just need that to get numbers, that's fine. But the way I built my followers is just by, I suppose, being authentic. And I know lots of people use the word authentic, but band it around. I've consistently grown my followers. So since I've started, I've grown my followers by between 50 and 100 followers a week, every week. So occasionally it goes up to 200 followers, but predominantly it's about 100 now, that on average, that every week that goes past, I'll get 100 new followers. Okay. So it's just a matter of time for me. But the reason that I'm getting followers is because I'm putting out good quality information, I'm giving out useful advice or tips. I'm being real. I'm interacting with people. I'm following people who look interesting to me. You can't sit back and just hope that people find you and follow you. You need to be proactive about it. So my advice in terms of is don't chase the numbers, but chase genuine relationships. If you've got 300 people who you interact with regularly and you've got a great community going on, you don't need 10,000 people. You just need people who actually care about you.
It's a great point. It's not about the numbers, it's about the quality, not quantity. All in all. So, Nicky, we've been very honoured to interview you at this great life-changing moment for you. You're about to go and leave and go and enjoy the whole world, which sounds amazing. So for everyone that wants to follow you, where can we find you online?
Well, I've got my website is nickykriel.com, which is NICKYKRIEL. And I've actually just set up a travel blog, which it's set up, but I haven't really told anybody about it yet. So I've got to fiddle around with it, and it's called What Nicky Did Next. So,
it's a great name.
So that will be about my travels and my experiences, because I've just come back from speaking in India, and we had an amazing tour in Kerala. So I've got lots of content to put on that, but packing a house has taken a bit of precedence over the blog, but I will get that content out.
Great. And that is whatnickydidnext.com?
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Well, wonderful stuff, Nicky. You've given some great insights today and a great inspiring life adventure of your own that you've just shared with us. So any final message that you'd like to give to everybody listening?
I was going to say, really, it's be yourself on social media. You're not going to appeal to everybody, but you want to make sure that you appeal to people who can help you and who can potentially do business. Now, with a business hat on, obviously, it's easier to do business with people that you like and that you get on with. So you want to attract the right people to you, and that's the aim is to, and that you do that by being yourself on social media.
It's so hard to be yourself in life, isn't it? Not just business, but in life in general.
Yeah.
So how have you managed to do that? Just as a final question to you.
I think it's working out. I mean, obviously, I don't recommend you put warts and all, so like you do. I think everybody has a bit of filtering that they apply, but I think it's really knowing who you are and what's important to you, and listening to your gut feel or your heart, like what feels right for you, and trusting your gut or trusting your instincts or whatever it is. So it just needs to feel right, and generally, if you can make people smile, and make somebody a little bit happier through the day, then it bounces back at you.
Bounces back at you, I like that. It's a great place to end our podcast. Nicky, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. Thank you so much. I wish you the very best of luck and lots of adventures ahead. I hope they're all fantastic, and I hope you come back and share some of them with us.
Thank you.
My name is Phil Byrne, and I'd like to thank you so much for listening today. I hope you got something really good to take away from this week's episode for you or your business. And you know what? I'd like to give you something more. In fact, I'd like to give you a whole free web marketing pack full of all my latest and best ideas on how you can take your business forward positively online. Download your pack at positivesparks.co.uk/pack. And most of all, guys, look forward to seeing you again next week.